Welcome to the Portland Culinary Podcast on Portland Culinary Radio. I'm Stephen Shalma, your host. So excited about today's episode. A special guest, longtime friend of mine, Adam Sawyer. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great. Stephen, how are you?
Very good. I'm very excited. So you're a world-renowned writer and author. Hey, don't laugh. You write for some really cool magazines, regional and national and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so we're going to talk about your latest book, Unique Eats and Eateries of Portland, Oregon.
Yes, sir.
I read the book last night. I was lucky enough to get an advance copy. It's a badass.
Oh man, that's high praise coming from a man like you, my friend. Thank you very much.
But I got to ask you, what the heck is an eatery?
Well, it's just kind of a fun word. It's where you can get food, right? It could be a restaurant, a food cart. It's just kind of a catch-all term for let's go get some food and stuff our faces.
I love it. I think it's fantastic and great cover photo.
Oh, thanks.
Covers make the book, man.
Yeah, and I had nothing to do with it. Thankfully, there's a whole team of people somewhere on the other side of the country that know what they're doing, and I just do as I'm told.
Okay, some of the standard regular questions I ask everybody on each podcast.
Sure.
Where were you born?
I try not to say this too loudly up here in California's Canada, but I was born in Los Angeles, California.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. I was born in a Hollywood Presbyterian.
So you were with me. You feel my pain.
Exactly.
I ran away as fast as I could, if that helps at all.
Well, where'd you go to high school?
We were born in LA, but at the age of 10 moved to north of there, Camarillo, California. It's kind of Ventura County there.
Now, my grandma lived in Oxnard, and I've been to the Camarillo Bob's Big Boy many times.
No way. I was raised at that Big Boy. No kidding. That was probably, we went there, I don't know, I must have been there 100 times or more.
That's so funny. My grandma loved the strawberry pie. She thought that was the greatest thing in the world.
Grandma's got a good palate.
I don't know about that, but okay, so where'd you go to high school?
Cornerstone Christian is what it was called. Real small. I think I had a graduating class of 12.
And what was your mascot?
An eagle.
Eagle. Yeah, I think Christian schools, that's a law. It's eagles, knights, or lions. That's all they allow.
Yeah, something that can go on a crest or something. Yeah.
So when I first met you, were writing about outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
And now you're a full-fledged travel writer. You write about travel, food, and outdoors.
Yeah.
So we're going to tease you a little bit.
Sure.
How dare you write a food book? Yeah. Come on now, this travel guy writing a food book.
Elbowing in.
Yeah, I think I need to go start a travel platform.
I said good day, sir. I said good day.
Okay, but before you started doing all that, what did you do professionally?
Actually, it was what brought me up here. I was a software engineer, or kind of IT support, production control, just IT catch-all is what I was doing, and that's what brought me up here.
So you're Northwest-based, although you do get on a plane and fly wherever. If someone wants to bring you to Iceland to do articles, you're okay with that?
That's the next step, man.
You'll take an assignment to Iceland?
You bet I will. You bet I will.
But you're Northwest-based, but
Correct.
The job brought you to Portland. Did you like it? Did you think you'd like it?
I didn't think I would like it at all. The Northwest was the last part of the country I had not kind of lived in or explored. Portland was city number 20 for me since leaving Los Angeles. And I just wanted to see it. I wanted to experience the Northwest, and I thought it was going to be gross and wet and moldy and cold. And there's some aspects of that to it, but timing is everything, and it turned out to be absolutely everything that I needed at that point in my life, and that was 13, 14 years ago, and it's my favorite place in the world.
So the Northwest is home now?
Oh, for sure. Forever.
Same for me. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you co-authored a number of books, which are really cool, but tell me about we're going to talk about your fourth book. How awesome is that you've written 4 books? Does that not feel good or what?
Dude, that feels amazing, and it really makes Mom happy.
Okay, but we're going to talk about the fourth second, but
Sure.
tell me about the first 3.
My very first book was for Falcon Guides, and that was hiking waterfalls in Oregon, and that's still kind of that's the one that helped me really break into the scene and become an author, and really actually helped things from a freelance perspective as well, once you're kind of given that mantle of expert in a category. And then that led to...
So did you cover Coachella Falls?
Oh, of course.
That's my favorite. I'm not a big hiking guy,
Yeah.
but I love that one because you hike for a mile.
Yeah.
It's not too steep a grade.
Perfect.
And there's a beautiful view at the end.
Oh, bang for the buck. It's one of the best. It's one of the best we got. Definitely in there.
Okay, then your second book?
Yeah, it was Best Outdoor Adventures Near Portland. And that was great because it was cycling and paddling and hiking and you name it, rock climbing even, all the great stuff within like 2 hours drive of Pioneer Courthouse Square.
Okay, and what was your third book?
That was 25 hikes on Oregon's Tillamook Coast, and it's a nice pocket guide that kind of details my favorite 25 hikes in Tillamook County, and it covers the whole breadth.
I love it. And they've just started the North Coast Food Trail.
Yes.
Which is phenomenal. So I love it out there.
I love the North Coast.
You should do like a biking book or something out there.
I think I'm going to try. We're going to see if we can make that happen.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so waterfalls, outdoor stuff, hiking, and then you horn in on my food stuff. But I don't feel bad. I've started, great travel, greatstories.com. I'm going to do travel stuff. You do food stuff.
Hey, turnabout's fair play.
But hey, your book, like I said, I read it last night.
Yeah.
Here's what blew my mind. You have more than 90 eateries.
Yeah.
90 places I could go eat, more than 90.
Yeah.
And as I read through all of them, there wasn't a loser among any of them.
Yes.
They were like,
that's good to hear.
I want to take someone visiting Portland to each of these places.
Oh, that's good.
And my hat's off to you. That's phenomenal.
That was the goal.
So how were you able to pull that off to where like all of the really cool places? I mean, you don't have every cool place in Portland, but you have a lot of them, and all the ones you have are winners. Tell me that story, how you got that.
So, part of the ingratiating myself into the Northwest culture, the outdoors was what led me initially, but part of the culture out here is the food and drink, and I started falling into that just as much. And my new career, when I left IT and started trying to make a living outside. That led me to become a tour guide, which led to culinary tours because I was getting so involved in the food and drink, as you know.
Yep.
Food carts and breweries and all those things out here. It was just an eye opener for me, and so I was eating and drinking at an alarming rate and trying to hike it off with varying degrees of success. And then got into giving culinary tours. And I've been a culinary tour guide now for, believe it or not, 7 or 8 years. And so I consider myself as much into the food and drink scene as I am into the outdoors. It just took a while for me to get the food and drink writing going. So that's how we got into that.
So let me put it this way. Here's how I see it.
Yeah.
As someone that loves the outdoors, there's not many more cooler magazines you could write for than Backpacker.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And you've written for them.
I have.
And that makes you an outdoor expert, right?
According to my mom, it does.
No, I think it does.
Yeah.
And having read your food book, when it comes to Portland culinary scene, you're an expert.
Thank you, man.
Dude, you have got it nailed.
Coming from you, brother.
It is. I'm not kidding. I mean, you've got and you've got distilleries, cideries, breweries, restaurants, food carts. You cover the whole breadth of the book, and it's impressive because sometimes people miss those components.
It's true, and that was something that I had to explore with the publisher, because when they said unique eats and eateries, they were like, give us your 90 favorite unique places to eat,
and they're thinking restaurants probably.
Right.
A traditional restaurant.
Exactly. And in my mind, you cannot tell the story of how Portland became the food mecca that it is without involving the entire scene, and that includes the liquid assets. The beer, we're arguably the craft brew capital of the world, and if, San Diego or Denver want to step up to the plate, we can take it outside, depending on how you want to.
As someone who's written a book on Portland beer, I would agree.
Yeah, see, exactly. And it's not just that. At the same time that the Willamette Valley was becoming this agricultural, farm to table mecca, these guys, Papa Pino, David Lett, and these other guys noticed that it was on the same latitudinal plane as the Burgundy region in France, and thought, hey, those hills look like a good place for wine grapes. And so we had this wine scene happening, and now we're, according to a major wine publication in 2016, the wine region of the year worldwide. We've got the craft beer, the distilleries,
incredible
cider.
Distilleries.
Yeah, some of the best, really, and they're getting overlooked. I think they haven't gotten their due yet. But any real food mecca is going to have a comparable kind of artisanal drink scene, some way to get artisanally hammered. And we've got it covered hands down. And so I needed to include that. If you're going to tell the story of Portland and how we got to where we are, you have to include those things.
Okay, and that's the cool thing about your book is not only do you I mentioned 90 different places, and you kind of give me, here's why I should go and why, but tell people about the book. Walk them through the book, because I want them to buy it, wet their whistle for it.
All right. Well, don't get too locked into the title. The title's great, but it tells the larger story of how Portland became arguably the food capital of the United States through the 90 different individual chapters. And so their stories tell the story of Portland's food scene. And if you allow me to set the table a little bit here.
Oh, I like how he did that.
There's a number of factors that all kind of conspired to get us to where we are. And it starts with, for West Coast cities, Portland is, and maybe even still, but especially when this bully was building, one of the most affordable West Coast cities in the country, easily. Infinitely more affordable than Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco, a lot of these other food meccas. On top of that, we had this creative culture. Portland's always had a wonderful creative culture.
Yep.
So you got affordability, creative culture, and then about 2 decades ago, depending on where you live, that farm-to-table thing really started setting in its roots. And culinary talent from around the globe started looking towards growing regions as places to go hone their craft and practice their trade. And the Willamette Valley as a growing region has a few things going for it that really set it apart. And I'll run down the list. But, to start with, naturally nutrient-rich volcanic soil. We also have a number of microclimates or little ecoregions that allow you to grow a wide array of fresh seasonal produce year-round. We also, although you wouldn't know it based on the weather we've had the last 5 or 10 years.
Speaking of regional stuff, I know that we recently got the chance to visit Oregon Coast Wasabi.
Oh, yeah.
And check out their farm on the Oregon Coast. I did a podcast episode with them.
That's incredible.
So how weird is it that Oregon even has a wasabi farm?
See, and that's the other thing, too. I'll take a quick divergence here and get back to the Willamette Valley, but our proximity to the coast, where Portland's located, we have these different ecoregions on to the west, to the east of us in particular. We're an hour and a half away from the Pacific Ocean, so you get the seafood. The different ecoregions allow for foraging of mushrooms, of berries, wasabi can grow here.
Now you're just making me hungry.
I know. We'll get something to eat after this. But so then. Back to the Willamette Valley, it's also very temperate. It's a wet weather city, not necessarily a cold weather city, and that's a good thing because you get a lot of rain. Water's a great starter kit for growing anything, and rarely a hard crop damaging freeze. Although our weather's been a little wonky the last few years, and so it's very temperate. But then here's the kicker. Here is the thing that separates the Willamette Valley from probably anywhere else in North America, and maybe even further afield. At the end of the last ice age.
I just wish you were excited about this.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Getting into full-on tour guide mode. At the end of the last ice age, roughly 15,000 years ago, ancient glacial Lake Missoula, you love Montana just like I do.
I love me some Bozeman, baby.
Man, gosh, I love Bozeman. But I digress. Ancient glacial Lake Missoula held about as much water as 2 of the current-day Great Lakes combined, and it was all held back by this massive mile-high ice dam. And so as the end of the last ice age, Earth's temperatures are increasing, and that dam becomes compromised and fractures, and a series of floods, now known as the Missoula or Brett's floods, are released time and time again, as many as 40 times, I believe. And we're talking about it empties that whole thing, and that water comes rushing across the landscape, across eastern Idaho, Montana, Washington, Oregon, down the Columbia River, forms the Columbia River Gorge. 600-foot high walls of water screaming down the Columbia River like 60 miles an hour. And when those floodwaters hit essentially where we're sitting right now, Portland, at the top of the Willamette Valley, they released and settled, along with everything they brought, which included massive chunks of Canadian granite, which we now call erratics, which is how we know these floods happened. But more importantly, with regards to the cuisine scene, topsoil. And because of those floods, the topsoil in the Willamette Valley is as deep as half a mile in some places. Half a mile of topsoil. It's not even topsoil anymore, but it's half a mile of the really good stuff. And so once people started realizing, oh my gosh, this is the land of milk and honey, they started coming here and they started establishing things. They were like, it's affordable. I remember there's at least 10 chefs I talked to. They were like, I wanted to go to San Francisco, but I couldn't afford it. And people told me Portland had something going on. So Portland became the eye of a culinary storm that began swirling around the Willamette Valley.
Dude, your excitement, and then you said land of milk and honey, I almost broke out in Father Abraham. Right,
yeah, man. but yeah, and so you had all these people starting to flock here at the same time. I was talking to Eli Castro from Olympia Provisions. He walked through the farmers market. He was visiting his sister here in Portland. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. But you know what they're missing? Salami. They're missing some cured meats. And so you had all these people discovering it at the same time. It was just building and building and building, and it was affordable. And then on top of that, and this is part of the story too, and something I don't need to tell you, my friend, the food carts. Because of our permissible zoning laws and everything, we had this thing where people could have these food carts. They could stay in a spot. And if you were moving to town, and you wanted to get into the mix or have your own restaurant, and you didn't have the extra $1 million laying around the house to do that, you could introduce people this nice kind of cart-based culinary handshake and say, hey, I can sling hash. I can do this shit. Sorry, I can do this.
and the food cart can build a brand.
Exactly.
So that then they can leverage it into a brick and mortar.
Totally.
Yeah.
And how many do we have at last count? Like 20-something food carts have gone on to become brick and mortar restaurants?
Yeah, done amazingly well.
Yeah. And so the book tells that story of how we got to where we are through these 90 individual stories. And they all weave together. And it was wonderful to discover this in interviewing and talking to all these amazing people that helped build That's Bully, how intertwined it all is and how we got to where we are.
I love it. Okay, so we're going to spend the next 3 hours. We're going to talk about each one of the 90 places.
Yes.
No, not really. So I just picked 10 kind of at random of
Great.
places, and we'll kind of talk through those 10 to kind of wet people's whistle for what they're going to find. But, okay, so you have had your book release party, Tapalaya.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now tell me where the name comes from.
So it's actually a combination of the words tapas and jambalaya.
And why do you like this place so stinking much? Because you're a big fan of them.
I really am, and there's a lot of things that go into something, being really sticking with you. And one of it, the food. I've been going there for a few years now. Used to go there for the happy hour menu, which was incredible. Happy hour is religion in this town. It's like brunch and happy hour, the two main religions in Portland.
That is exactly right.
And one fades into the other if you're doing it right. And but Chef Ann Liu, she makes this Asian Cajun cuisine. She grew up in a Vietnamese community in New Orleans, and it wasn't what we would call fusion necessarily. It was an actual developed cuisine where the Vietnamese community were using kind of the things that they knew to make Cajun cuisine and make their own cuisine, and it became this wonderful, it's its own thing. And so she brought that to Portland, and I detailed it's an amazing story in the book. She brought it here, and she's just, she's got a knack, and so her food is amazing, but also in interviewing her and hearing her story, the amazing story it is with Hurricane Katrina and all the turmoil her family went through out there, she's just this wonderful soul. And when you're talking to someone and you hear them and you're talking about this thing that makes them, that really is in their wheelhouse, that really turns their crank, and you're like, wow, you're a force to be reckoned with, and I love your food, I love your place. And then she said, hey, this sounds great. It sounds like a great project. If you're having a release party, we'd love to have it. I'm like, I'm a taker-upper. Sold. Let's do this.
Okay, someone goes, what are a dish or two they should get when they go there?
Oh, my gosh. So she has some standard like Cajun or Creole standards, but a couple of like Vietnamese highlights as well. But the jambalaya is incredible. I actually get steak Lorraine, steak Diane. Sorry, I got my quiches and my steaks confused. She does this incredible sauce for it. They're incredible, and some of the best fried okra that I've had on the West Coast.
Okay.
She does everything great.
And they have, I love the cocktails there.
Oh yeah, another happy hour, man. Where you gonna go wrong?
Second place, Horse Brass. You got just one of the iconic Portland craft beer bars. Yet another thing that Portland does better than maybe any other West Coast city is like a true proper pub. You go to a lot of pubs these days, and it's bright lights and widescreen TVs and NASCAR and things like that, and that's not a pub. And Don Younger, it's another great story where he was having his car worked on, at the shop across the street, and he was sitting in what is now the Horse Brass, just getting hammered
while he's waiting for his car to get done, and in this now renowned story, infamous story, wakes up the next day with a bill of sale that he'd bought the place. And so, long story short, he and a few other folks here in Portland wound up kind of charging or leading the charge, spearheading us having the craft beer revolution or brew pub revolution, changing the legislature to allow for pubs or if they were serving food to be able to brew and serve their own beer on premise. And so it's just an amazing...
my friend Pete Dunlap wrote a book, actually, about that bit of history and how that law changed.
I got to read that.
And he's a great guy. He's a beer writer, and he covered that in depth, that whole history of what happened.
It's incredible. And it is a huge chapter in our story. And it's a beautiful piece of old Portland. I know a lot of Portlanders talk about old Portland and look very nostalgically, and rightfully so, back on that time.
Okay, so people go to Horse Brass.
Yes.
I know what I love to eat when I go there. They obviously have an amazing craft beer list. They have, imports and local craft beer and really cool craft beer across the country.
Yeah.
What about food? Anything stick out in your mind? I know what I love.
I know what you love, and I love the same doggone thing that you do. I'm a big fan of, obviously, the fish and chips, but the pasties too. But man, that Scotch egg.
Scotch egg. Okay, for those that don't know, tell people what a Scotch egg is. Some people have never heard of such a thing.
So you've got a soft boiled egg. Ideally, is how it finishes. I'm not sure where you get it to before you reach that finishing move. But you wrap it in pork sausage, right? And then you bread or batter that thing, and then you fry it, and then it arrives on your plate, and you open it up, and you get that perfect, like almost volcano cake moment where it just oozes out. And it's the perfect if you're in a race to the grave with someone, and that is the great way to get your day kicked off. You can see your arteries getting harder.
It is so good. And they have real bangers and mash there.
They do. They're so good. Love that place.
Okay. Total other end of the spectrum, culinary spectrum, Departure. For those that have not been, Top of the Nines Hotel tells us something about Departure.
Departure is a great story. Well, great food, obviously, which is, a critical component. But a lot of people think Departure doesn't feel like Portland. It feels more L.A. or New York. It's kind of this hyper stylized. Everyone smells good. It's very architecturally different. It is a departure in many ways. But to me, that also kind of exemplifies Portland. They did things their way, the way they wanted to, and kind of really kicked it in the ass doing their own thing. And if that isn't Portland, nothing else is.
Portland is a city where you can do your own thing.
Exactly. And whether that falls into, super casual, show up in your hiking pants and boots and be able to eat dinner, or whether it goes the other way, to the other end of the spectrum, I think Departure is very much a Portland place. And not only that, but you've got Chef Gregory Gourdet, who is
phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
He's a force of nature.
Well, and they've got their own stuff. They've got their own honeybees up on top of the roof. They've got their own garden. They've got a whole amazing thing down in the basement where they're doing hydroponics and all these growing everything down in the basement. It's almost like a mad scientist. And their drinks, the view, the food.
Yeah, I love Holiday Ale Fest. We have a lot of beer festivals in Portland.
Yeah,
I love Holiday Ale Fest, and I last year got to go to stayed at the Nines Hotel. Went to Holiday Ale Fest brunch on Sunday morning, but that night, took my girlfriend, we were up at the top of at Departure, had a cocktail, look out over the Christmas tree and the Holiday Ale Fest. It is phenomenal.
There might be no finer Portland moment than that, my friend.
And for those of you that have not been to Departure and had a cocktail up on the rooftop, you've got to do that.
That is a must do in the city.
Okay. Country Cat Diner.
God, I love the Sappingtons.
You and me both, kid.
Well, they're phenomenal people, are they not? They're just big-hearted, just always have a smile on their face. And they also kind of helped one of the ones that helped kind of spearhead that whole animal cooking thing here in Portland, just making broths and rich sauces and all these things, utilizing every part of the animal. But they're also they're a neighborhood place that kind of got big. They're family friendly. I mean, and I put it this way in the book: how many James Beard Award nominee places do you know where kids still eat free on Sunday? Like how family friendly is that? That tells you everything you need to know about Country Cat.
Okay, here's a conundrum question for you.
Please.
What's better there, brunch or dinner? You can't answer that.
See, they're one of those few places in Portland that make you sit there and ponder that. You just don't know because they are just as good at the morning, mid-morning as they are in the evening, and that's hard to pull off.
Yeah, phenomenal. And man, their biscuits. Oh my goodness.
Heaven on earth. And you know what? They even managed to make the airport one good.
Yes, they did.
That's hard to do, man. And
Yes,
I even told Chef Sappington that the last time I talked to him, I'm like, man, the airport country cat is on point. In case you don't know, he's like, that's good to hear because that's hard to do. And like, you will, nailed it.
All right, Holly Pelly.
Oh man, this is you're all the hits.
That's why when I read your book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy nailed it.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, Holly Pelly, you want to talk about a true tiki bar.
It's the Disneyland. Now I grew up in Southern California, and I love me some Disneyland as a kid.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like the Disney. To me, it's a compliment to say it's the Disneyland of tiki bar.
For sure.
It is amazing.
And it plays bigger than it is. Have you noticed that? Like it's not a large space, but it feels like it's a whole world.
But if you get there and there's a half-hour wait, it is more than worth it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Take your time. Yeah. Take your time. Walk around. Enjoy yourself. You've got time. Where are you going? They're amazing. The little storms, the thunderstorms that happens.
Depending on the type of drink someone orders.
Exactly.
Then there's storms and thunder and some mist comes out.
And their food. The food is good. The food is really good. I enjoy.
The food is good. The cocktails rock.
Right, but yeah, the cocktails, and I think you'd mentioned to me before, one of the best Mai Tais you've had outside of Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. Other than Big Wave Dave's in Kauai, which is a fantastic dive bar you got to go to sometime.
Watch me.
But man, amazing Mai Tai. All the cocktails are good though.
Yeah, they're extremely good.
And you get the fun ones that come on fire.
Yeah. I love it. It's like Cirque du Soleil and a bartender had a baby. It's like an entire demonstration. It's incredible. Fire, jumping, fireworks.
Okay. Lardo, love me some Rick Ciancarelli. He was actually the first. He was the first episode of the Portland Culinary Podcast.
Really?
Rick has inspired me. I tell the story how he inspired me to do what I do today, eating his food. When Lardo was a food cart, I said I gotta start a website and tell people about this food. So talk to me about some Lardo.
I had the same kind of experience with Rick, meeting him, and I've been taking people to Lardo on food tours for years. The pork banh mi sandwich, the pho wrench dip are perhaps two of the greatest things that have ever happened to my face, and he is a critical component in the story as well in terms of how chefs could come to Portland and say, let's try some proof of concept, or at least introduce myself to these people and the food scene and kind of ingratiate myself this way before we go whole hog. And he came in there with a clear idea and a battle plan.
Did you just say whole hog about Lardo?
You see what I did there?
I love it.
But no, and his sandwiches and his food were a clear hit right off the bat. And he knocked it out of the park, and he is what he is today. And he went, on to Grassa and all these things, and it's a perfect Portland food story in what he did. And he's also, one of the coolest guys in Portland.
Yeah, he's the real deal. He is the real deal. Okay, Sarah Vesa.
See, here you go. I mean, man, we're gonna turn this into a 3-hour podcast. One of the best beer bars in Portland or further afield or anywhere.
They're regularly ranked in the top 100, top 50 beer bars in the United States.
Not a shocker.
Regularly. Sarah does an amazing job. I did a Portland Beer Podcast episode with her telling her story. She's phenomenal.
Another sweetheart.
And she's in my book. She's fantastic. But amazing beer, but you kind of like the food too.
I do. And it's one of those things where it's greater than the sum of its parts, beer bar for sure. You go there and not even worry about the food, or you go there for the food and happen to have a really good beer while you're at it. And if you're a Packer backer, well, you've got a home away from home. But it is one of the best beer bars in the city, and that makes it something special. That's saying a lot.
It is. Okay, so Tall, I ate at his food cart when it was at D Street and Oshtray on Division and roughly 30th.
Yeah.
Long time ago, back in the day.
Yeah.
Now he's got his restaurant open. Tell us about this amazing restaurant.
Yet another food cart that became a brick and mortar, right? Is there the food cart scene tells the story of Portland, and vegan Israeli food, right? If I'm not mistaken, Mediterranean food, and
he does. It's vegan Israeli food, and it's amazing.
It's incredible. I had the privilege of hanging out with him over a meal when I was making this book. And, the space is clean. It's a beautiful space that he's in right there. But, honed his craft in that food cart, and he's kind of primed to take over the world. I know he's looking at expanding, but it's one of those places that Portland does vegetarian and vegan food so well that I'm an omnivore. I'll eat absolutely anything, but some of these places do this stuff so well that I'll order the vegetarian or the vegan thing off the menu just because it tastes so good, or it's maybe one of the best things there. And he's a perfect example of in this meat-loving, pork-loving town of ours, the other side of the coin is equally represented.
Yeah, Gonzo was his food cart.
Oh, yeah, Gonzo.
Yep, and his hummus. Holy heck, something as simple as hummus. He makes his own, he nails it.
And he does these ice creams. Like I had a roasted hatch chili ice cream. And I'm like, why would you do this? This isn't a good thing. And then I had it, I'm like, this needs to exist. This is one of those things. This is my new favorite thing of the year. He's brilliant.
Yeah, so some people that don't, in Portland, we actually like vegan. Oh, that's fine. Vegan is fine. But in other parts of the country or in some family cultures, like vegan's scary and weird.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what? You eat tofu? Oh,
Right,
yeah. Hail Satan.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if Aviv is one of those places that if you have a friend that's like not sure they can survive without meat, take them to Aviv and they're going to have an incredible, and they will forget
You
that
won't
it's
know.
vegan.
You
It's
won't know.
just amazing food.
It's true.
The vegan part doesn't matter.
Exactly. And he's a prime example of how that is done in Portland. And I like the way you sum that up. You won't even know. You won't know. You won't know. You're not missing it.
Yep. Okay, and then going to the other side of the spectrum, Burger Stevens.
Gosh, I love Don. So I experienced them, when he first opened that cart on there, what was it, Hillsdale?
Yep.
On the back,
Yep.
in the back of a high school. And this was a guy who had worked at Michelin star restaurants back east and was a chef, and came out to Portland and was, just classic American hamburger, classic American cheeseburger. We're gonna use this local beef. We're gonna use Tillamook cheddar cheese. We're gonna use a Franz bun, right? And it's just, I don't know what he does, an extra quarter cup of love, some sort of chef magic or something, but it is the best cheeseburger right now for me. Just classic American cheeseburger that is being made in Portland.
And now he's got a couple brick and mortars. He's got cool stuff working.
Dude,
But yeah, if you want,
Pioneer Courthouse Square now
Yeah.
for everyone who wants to go, next time you're in Pioneer Courthouse Square, he's got a cart there now.
yeah, we've got a lot of cool things in Portland. One of them being burgers, and his is often at the top of the list, and it should be.
I love it. Oh, I get, just FYI, pro tip, get the roasted jalapeno on that thing. If you want to just kick it up a little partial notch.
Okay.
I'm not saying take it to the brioche bun and like blue cheese arena or anything, but go ahead and upsell on the roasted jalapeno. You won't be sorry.
That works. Okay, Pambiche.
It's a little taste of Havana right here in Portland, isn't it? You would never know. But that building, and I forget the specific name of the building that it's in, but it looks like a Havana, right? It's just these bright, beautiful colors. If you go there in the summer, you can smell things wafting. You can sit outside and actually forget that you're in Portland for a minute, and just the food and the drinks. It's another double barrel hit between the drinks and the food at Pambiche.
Yeah, and if you don't know Cuban food, you got to go. I mean, because you will get a cultural experience and an education, and the food is absolutely amazing.
That's a great point you make, because a lot of times, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, but a lot of times people confuse Latin foods, and they'll be like, well, I don't like Mexican food. Well, it's not Mexican food. Cuban food is different than Venezuelan food, than any sort of ethnic arena down there. That's a great place to go really understand Cuban food, especially here in Portland.
Phenomenal. Okay, we've covered 10, so we'll do 11 of the 90. So this is the last
The bonus
one.
round.
This to me has been an unsung gem. I recently wrote an article about the deviled eggs at this place because they blew me away so much.
Ooh, where are we going?
And I open up in your book and like, he's stinking. He's amazing. He's got the Doug fur in here too.
Oh, see?
Because a lot of people don't think of them for food.
They don't. It's okay. We know the Doug Fir is this incredible music venue. It is architecturally stunning. It's just a place where, I don't feel cool very often. If I go and sit at the Doug Fir, I feel cool. I can have my Portland cool moment. But they recently revamped that menu in there, and their food, the breakfast, is phenomenal.
The breakfast, the Bloody Marys, I absolutely love it.
And when
so
you
much.
crush deviled eggs in this town, like there's a couple of places that do deviled eggs really good, and they're right at the top. Yeah, I love them.
Okay, Adam, I love this book. Tell us the name again. I want people to go buy it.
It is The Unique Eats and Eateries of Portland, Oregon.
And if you're listening to this podcast, just go to Portland Culinary Podcast. There'll be a link right at the top where you can click and buy the book. But they'll also down below after the article that says, follow Adam Sawyer, which I always put so people can follow you. And I to prepare people for your Instagram, we've got to explain your Facebook page.
Oh, yes. Yes, so it is Adam Sawyer, Professional Gentleman of Leisure.
Fantastic. Love that.
That's a mouthful for sure. But, I'm still learning. I'm learning a lot from you about like marketing and branding and all these sorts of things. And that may have been the one thing I did semi-okay in terms of marketing is people remember that. And whether you're laughing at me or with me,
who cares?
With that title, you remember it. And I'm happy to have that. People get a kick out of it, and it's me, making fun of the fact that I'm trying to make a living through leisure. But as you and I know, you'll never work harder in your life than trying to be a writer.
Writers don't work. It's no big deal to go out to eat, have to take photos, pay attention to what you're eating, take notes, and remember enough to write a cogent article later.
Right. It is a job. It's a great job, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it's good fun, that title.
I love it. Okay, and then so people got to go. They got to find you on Facebook, follow you on Facebook. There'll be a link right to the website they can click. But then your Instagram is Adam_PGOL.
Correct.
Professional Gentleman of Leisure.
That's that. Nailed it.
And you do a lot of cool adventures, your travel stuff, in addition to your food stuff. So if people like this podcast, they like your book, they got to follow you and keep up with the other stuff.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so there's one thing I want from you.
Sure.
I know there's nothing in the hopper yet, but I want more books. I want like another fun travel book, or I want another food book. So just start thinking, because the stuff you put together is great. I think there's a few more in there.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I will do my best.
All right. Well, Adam, it's great to having you on the Portland Culinary Podcast.
Great
I love
here.
what you do, and this book is going to be very helpful to people that live in Portland, and very helpful to people that don't, that are coming to visit our fair city.
Thank you, Stephen. It was my pleasure being here. I appreciate it.
All right. Cheers, everyone.